So, Frank was here last time, and as I just told him when he came in the room, several people spoke passionately, but Frank's speech was magnificent. It was relatively short, and it was one of the most powerful speeches, and particularly because it was impromptu. But although it appeared that he'd been thinking about the issue for a long, long time. So if you wouldn't mind coming up and saying what you had said last time, we'd be honored. Especially about the challenge.
Oh, yeah. Speaking to the choir. All these good people here, they're not the ones that should be here. That's the whole thing. I'm trying to remember what I said. One of the things I said was that Central Alternative School was underserved and underfunded, and I gave some examples of how they did that way back when Hoover School gave up its encyclopedia. Because it was obsolete, they gave it to Central Alternative School, you see. And there are a lot of instances of that. I made a study of the library at Central Alternative School, if you want to call it a library. And it's pitiful. The research, I'm losing vocabulary now. What do you call those? Reference books, obsolete, for the most part. A lot of things have happened even in the last 20 years in the world, and they're not in that book because they're obsolete. I compared the Hempstead number of books per pupil with the Central number of books per pupil, and there were 3 times as many at Hempstead. And when I talked to the librarian about paperbacks, she said, we don't count paperbacks. Well, I counted paperbacks because that's about all they had back there. Listed alphabetically, by the way, not Library of Congress, or any of the other systems. And sometimes I would have 2 books, the letter I. 3 times as many, and so it would be 5 times as many or more if we really did a comparison of books. And a lot of the paperbacks were donated and were obsolete. That doesn't mean they're obsolete because they're paperbacks, but when you look them over. And so I made I said, you're looking for $400,000? I got $400,000 for you. You've got 14 schools, they tell me, elementary schools, pink slipped 7 principals, and you have the other 7 that will take 2 schools. And of course, sarcastically, since, I'm not a fan of administration, I said, the principals ought to be able to order toilet paper for 2 schools as well as 1. Don't want to denigrate their job, but when it comes, but I do. But my experience with administration over 30, 40 years. I says I can name 3 principals that I liked if you give me a week. You see, that's how nasty I was. I didn't tell you that last week. But there's your, 60,000 each, 7 times 6, 42, $420,000. There's your money. Which is more important, the administrators, or the students? To me, it's a no-brainer. And then I began thinking, that's what I said. Began thinking, and I figured, where do public schools get their money? They raise taxes. Why can't they raise taxes to keep Central Alternative School going? That's a good question. Maybe they want the public to come up and say, please raise taxes, so it isn't our idea. That's all I can figure. Went online this morning, and they're saying, the alternative schools may be the schools of the future. So it looks like we're going backwards. That the high schools, as presently constructed in the industrial society, are not producing the kind of students we want that think, that business wants. And business has said you're not producing them. So maybe we ought to have small little schools like Central Alternative that get students to think, and do what business wants and what's necessary in a democracy. So instead of going forward and making Hempstead and Senior more like Central, we go the other way. it doesn't seem like we're forward-looking.